Arsenal fans are decidedly optimistic and hopeful. With a second-place finish and an unexpected title charge that was as exhilarating as it was exasperating, beaten to the title by Manchester City's unrelenting champions, many would forgive them for coming just short of the title when pitted against the latest incarnation of Pep Guardiola's utopian system. So it came as a complete surprise to many of the Arsenal faithful, as well as pundits, when Arsenal began their pursuit of Kai Havertz, hitherto a player much maligned by the Chelsea fans who couldn't express their unbounded delight at the most recent title challenges and City's rivals taking him off their books for a reportedly hefty price of £65 million. Arsenal's third most expensive acquisition in history. This narrative has been further developed following a handful of uninspiring performances by the young German talent who only a few years ago was tipped to be amongst the burgeoning new generational talents, primed to take over the footballing landscape. But many have made up their mind a little too fast. Hello there, my name is Izzy, and welcome to my channel, Paul's Football Talk, where I look to explore everything football. If you're new to the channel, I'm sure you've heard the drill, but I'll indulge you again. Consider subscribing to the channel. And better yet, if you like the video, hit the like button to let YouTube and others know that you're enjoying the content. And let's get this channel to 100 subscribers. Now, on to what you've clicked this video for. Kai Havertz was a precocious talent, developed as a central attacking midfielder at Bayer Leverkusen. He was highly regarded for his ability to ghost into space and track attacking runs from his wingers, not to mention his impudent finishes and characteristic swagger. Having scored 36 goals and contributing 25 assists in just 118 Bundesliga appearances, he earned a move to Chelsea, a constant European force and Premier League champions just 3 years earlier. Chelsea's foresight in acquiring the emerging talents in world football was ahead of many teams in that regard. The generational talents that have defined the last 10 to 15 years are coming to an end of their careers, and many clubs have been scampering to snatch up the next legion of talents that will define the next decade plus, a decision that the heads of recruitment at these clubs have not taken lightly. You only have to look at Real Madrid and their pursuit of talents such as Camavinga, Tchouaméni, Rodrigo, Vinicius Jr., and the protracted courtship of Kylian Mbappe, as well as the transition of the definitive players of the last 15 or so years, which is why Kai Havertz was such a coup for Chelsea, as he was touted as a future generational talent and a future Ballon d'Or recipient. So, what went wrong for Kai at Chelsea that led so many to celebrate his departure, and many to question Arsenal's decision to acquire him? Signed during the tenure of Frank Lampard, Havertz was subject of many admiring glances across Europe. And as reported by The Athletic, the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, assisted by his pursuit of greater challenges, led him to seek pastures new. And Chelsea's increasingly attractive prospects led him to sign for the club in the summer of 2020. There was also the allure of playing under a generational midfield legend such as Frank Lampard, who defined the number 8 role at his time at Chelsea and became the club's all-time leading goal scorer, which in itself is an outstanding feat. One that I don't think many people realize just how phenomenal it is. Havertz would be joined at Chelsea by another Bundesliga talent in Timo Werner, who would also suffer a torrid spell at Stamford Bridge. Now, Kai Havertz is part of a very exclusive type of player, the shadow striker. Chelsea began playing him as a central striker, but there's a subtle difference between the two. The former is a player who is primarily creative, charged with executing intricate creative output while being able to score goals occasionally. The latter displays a convention, far be it for me to question the technical knowledge of Frank Lampard, a player who has won it all. But his deployment of Kai Havertz as a striker began the downhill spiral of his promising talent. During his most trying time, Frank Lampard tasked Kai Havertz with providing goals to a Chelsea team that was struggling. Now, most players rely on confidence to excel, but creative players are arguably more prone to confidence issues because creating chances is more proactive and difficult than defending, which is more reactive. All this being said, Kai can do a job up front, although imperfectly. But even he doesn't see that as his favorite position, stating that his preference is the number 8 role, citing the likes of Kaká, Zidane, Ronaldinho, and Iniesta as his idols.
even going as far as saying that he models himself after German national teammate Toni Kroos, which makes the constant decision to play him as a central striker all the more baffling. Seeing that Lampard himself, at number 8, should have recognized this. And you can see why he views the aforementioned players as his role models, with the languid, deliberate, yet deceptive speed of Kaká, infused with the technical prowess of Zidane and Iniesta, crowned by the positional awareness of Kroos. It is no wonder we haven't seen the best of him, because he is simply not a classic number 9 or number 10. He never really had a chance to show that at Chelsea.
Kai's goals were now increasingly becoming the central focus of fans and pundits alike. Some were able to see that this was not his natural position. But football is a results business, and the downturn in Chelsea's fortunes would result in Frank Lampard being replaced by Thomas Tuchel in the Chelsea dugout, beginning a carousel of managerial changes that would impact Kai in his formative years in English football. Tuchel's appointment was an initial positive for Kai, in which an addition of Timo Werner's recruitment was intended to bring in a manager who would understand how to utilize Kai and Timo's abilities to the fullest. And for Kai, it did, albeit just for a little bit. Kai Havertz was Chelsea's top scorer during the Thomas Tuchel era, a stint that culminated in him etching his name into Chelsea's folklore, as he scored the goal that secured them a Champions League title against Pep Guardiola's all-conquering Manchester City side in May of 2021.
Kai Havertz, Champions League hero, immortality beckons if Chelsea can hold on.
That would be a highlight of Kai's stay at Chelsea, and his continued deployment as a striker would prove to be detrimental to his and Tuchel's careers at Chelsea. Now, there's a precedence for players such as Kai. One very good example that should bring a smile to Arsenal fans everywhere is Dennis Bergkamp, one of Arsenal's and indeed the world's greatest players ever. He was acquired from Inter Milan. He was played primarily as a striker for the majority of his time at Inter. After a troubled stint at the Italian club, his move to Arsenal was highly questioned, and it wasn't until the arrival of Arsene Wenger and his free-flowing football that the world realized just how mercurial Dennis Bergkamp's talent was. Dennis Bergkamp was in many ways the archetypal shadow striker, the cross between a number 9 and a number 10, a player capable of splitting a defense as well as scoring the most spectacular of goals. And his partnership with Ian Wright and later Nicolas Anelka, who assumed the striking role, saw Arsenal mount and eventually win their first Premier League title under Arsene Wenger. Eventually, the likes of Thierry Henry and Sylvain Wiltord would benefit from Dennis Bergkamp's provision, and the rest is history. Kai Havertz is that kind of player, and even more so, he is extremely gifted at finding spaces to run into, as he showed at Bayer Leverkusen. He would routinely supply his wide players with impressive passes that would generate chances, and invariably, he would be on the end of chances created by his team by arriving late in the box, a quality that would also allow him to play as a box-to-box or a number 8 if needed, because he showed an aptitude, that skill set, as well as a turn of pace. But in a twist of fate, Roman Abramovich was forced to sell his Chelsea team and relinquish his position as the club's custodian. Consequently, the dismissal of Tuchel as Chelsea's manager by Todd Boehly would see the club undergo a radical transformation that would see Graham Potter appointed and dismissed within the same season, and Frank Lampard return for an ill-fated stint that would result in 1 win in 11, scoring a meager 9 goals in the process. A dismal return. All the while, Kai Havertz's confidence was taking a hit, and for a young player still learning his trade, a very heavy blow. Not to mention the countless permutations the managers aligned him with as they tried to unsuccessfully find a solution to Chelsea's goal-scoring problems. By the end of the season, Chelsea finished 12th, and their supporters were somewhat relieved and even puzzled to hear the likes of Real Madrid, Arsenal, Bayern Munich, now managed by Thomas Tuchel, interested in acquiring Kai. Bayern and Arsenal fielded the more concrete interest. In the end, Arsenal's courtship proved the most attractive to Kai, and he duly signed for the Gunners this summer. Since signing, Arteta has experimented with Kai as a false 9 in preseason, but has settled on using him as a number 8 box-to-box midfielder to replace Granit Xhaka, who himself had seen a renaissance under the Arsenal boss. Martin Odegaard has assumed the primary role of creator in the number 10 role, which leaves Arteta looking for a player who could slot in as a box-to-box midfielder, or shoulder the creative burden that Odegaard has, even conceivably act as a double pivot in chance creation. Arteta is seeking to use his ability to interpret space, while occasionally charged with pressing the opposition's defense early on to win possession in their half, which is why many have compared Kai Havertz to Thomas Müller at Bayern Munich, who also has a great sense of tactical positioning, as well as space interpretation, a role affectionately referred as the Raumdeuter. It was even suggested that Bayern's pursuit and acquisition of Leroy Sané should have been delayed in order to sign Havertz, who could have been the heir apparent to Müller. However, as it stands, the main problem is that Kai Havertz seems bereft of confidence, and his passing is safe, often backwards or sideways. Kai also seems to have lost that killer instinct in front of goal that made him so coveted during his time in Germany. Chelsea largely played him out of position, under managers that were under pressure and did not play him in his most favorable positions. Arteta himself recognizes that Kai will need to bed in with the team. He has even implored fans to be patient with Kai in order to see the best of him, just like they needed to do with Granit Xhaka, Ben White, and Aaron Ramsdale. If Kai Havertz is to be managed well, he will need to not only regain his confidence, but to also be allowed to create. The tools are there, and in Mikel Arteta, he will have a manager that believes in his abilities as he resuscitates his career at Arsenal. Kai Havertz needs time, just as Dennis Bergkamp, Robert Pires, Freddie Ljungberg, and Thierry Henry before him needed. Martin Odegaard and Granit Xhaka are recent examples as well. Mikel Arteta is a manager who's also needed time to fully realize a team that could be built in his identity. The team chemistry amongst Kai and his colleagues is still being built, and no doubt, once they acclimatize to his talents, Arsenal might just be the quixotic team that Arteta envisions. Thanks for watching, and if you like this video, please consider subscribing. And if you want to explore more content on the channel, click on one of the links right here. I promise you won't be disappointed. Until next time, it's been your boy Izzy. Peace.